The chandeliers dripped crystal light across marble floors where champagne glasses clinked like warning bells. In the center of Milan's most elite charity gala, a woman in a maid's uniform stood frozen, caught between the laughter of the wealthy and the silent, lethal attention of a man whose tattooed knuckles rested against his whiskey glass. Power and poverty had collided. The room didn't know it yet, but everything was about to shatter. Please like, share and subscribe. Talia Mancuso had learned to be invisible. In the Costanzo estate, invisibility was survival. She moved through rooms like a ghost, dusting heirlooms worth more than her entire life, polishing floors that reflected faces she'd never be allowed to sit among. 3 years she'd worked here. 3 years of silence and submission. Tonight was different. The annual Costanzo Charity Gala transformed the estate into a spectacle of wealth and power. Talia had been assigned to the coat room, a position that kept her away from the main event. She preferred it that way. Less risk. Less exposure. But Maria Costanzo, the matriarch of the family, had other plans. Talia. The older woman's voice was soft but commanding. I need you inside. The head server called in sick. Talia's chest tightened. Signora, I'm not trained for. You'll be fine. Maria's hand touched her shoulder with surprising warmth. Just keep the champagne flowing and stay quiet. You're good at that. The words weren't cruel, just honest. Talia nodded, smoothing down the black uniform that suddenly felt too tight, too visible. She followed Maria through the corridor toward the main ballroom, where music and laughter spilled out like a tide she couldn't swim against. She didn't see him yet. But he saw her. Leandro Costanzo stood at the edge of the ballroom, a predator dressed in a three-piece suit. The tattoo on his right hand, intricate Italian script that read famiglia sopra tutto, curled across his knuckles as he lifted his glass to his lips but didn't drink. He never drank at these events. Control was everything. His dark eyes swept the room with practiced indifference. Politicians, businessmen, socialites draped in diamonds and desperation. All of them here to kiss his ring, to pretend they weren't terrified of the Costanzo name. Then she entered. A maid. Dark hair pulled back severely, olive skin, eyes that looked anywhere but at the crowd. She carried a tray of champagne with steady hands despite the tremor he noticed in her breath. He'd seen her before. Around the estate. Always moving, always silent. His mother approached her, said something that made the girl nod quickly. Too quickly. Like a deer sensing a wolf. Leandro's jaw tightened. He turned back to his business associate, a fat man named Ricci who was sweating despite the air conditioning. The shipment arrives Thursday. You'll have your payment when I have confirmation. Ricci nodded, eager to please, eager to leave. Leandro dismissed him with a glance and moved deeper into the crowd. His younger brother Marco materialized at his side, 25, reckless, grinning. Hell of a party, fratello. Marco's tattoo, identical to Leandro's but on his left hand, flashed as he gestured with his drink. You look like you're at a funeral. I'm always at a funeral, Leandro said flatly. Marco laughed. You need to relax. Find a woman. There's a dozen here who'd. I'm not interested. You're never interested. Marco's gaze followed a blonde across the room. It's unnatural. Leandro didn't respond. His attention had snagged on movement near the refreshment table. The maid, Talia, his mother had called her once, was being cornered by Alessandro Ferraro, a lawyer with political ambitions and wandering hands. Ferraro leaned too close, said something that made her step back. She kept her face blank. Professional. But Leandro saw the tension in her shoulders. His fingers curled against his glass. The tattoo across his knuckles seemed to darken. Before he could move, his mother's voice cut through the music. Excuse me, everyone. A moment of your time. The room quieted. Maria Costanzo commanded respect even among men who commanded armies. She stood at the center of the ballroom, graceful in navy silk, her silver hair swept back elegantly. Thank you all for coming tonight, she began. Your generosity supports our foundation's work with. A woman's voice interrupted, sharp and bright with mockery. How generous of you, Maria, to let the help serve us. Laughter rippled through a cluster of women near the bar. The speaker was Valentina Romano, a socialite married to a shipping magnate, dripping in emeralds and cruelty. Maria's smile didn't falter, but Leandro saw the flash in her eyes. I'm not sure I understand. Your maid. Valentina's red lips curved. Serving champagne. So rustic. Are we supposed to pretend she's one of us? The laughter grew louder. Talia had frozen mid-step, tray still balanced perfectly despite every eye turning toward her. Leandro's hand tightened on his glass until he heard the crystal crack. I mean, darling, Valentina continued, addressing the room like a stage. We all know what happens when the help gets too comfortable. They start thinking they belong. Next thing you know, they're sneaking into bedrooms they shouldn't be in. The implication hung in the air like poison. Talia's face drained of color, but she didn't move. Didn't defend herself. She just stood there, absorbing the humiliation like she'd been trained to do. Maria's voice was ice. Valentina, she's probably already eyeing the Costanzo fortune, another woman chimed in. Gold digger in a maid's uniform. How clever. The room erupted in cruel laughter. And then Talia moved. She didn't run. She walked forward slowly, deliberately, until she stood directly in front of Valentina Romano. The champagne tray never wavered. You're right, Talia said quietly. Her voice shouldn't have carried, but somehow it did. I'm not one of you. The laughter died. I don't wear emeralds bought with dirty money. I don't laugh at people who work for a living. And I don't disrespect women who've shown me nothing but kindness. Talia turned to Maria. Signora Costanzo has more grace in her smallest gesture than this entire room combined. Silence crashed over the ballroom like a wave. Valentina's face flushed crimson. How dare you? I dare, Talia said simply, because someone should. Then she did something that made Leandro's world tilt. She set down the champagne tray, removed her serving apron and placed it carefully on the nearest table. Without another word, she turned and walked toward the exit, her spine straight, her head high. The crowd parted for her like water. Leandro didn't remember moving. One moment he was at the edge of the room, the next he was blocking her path, his body a wall between her and the door. She stopped. Looked up. Their eyes met for the first time. Hers were dark amber, burning with suppressed rage and unshed tears. His were black, unreadable, dangerous. The tattoo on his right hand flexed as he lowered his glass to a passing waiter without breaking eye contact. Where are you going? His voice was low, a rumble of controlled thunder. Home. Her chin lifted. I quit. You defend my mother and then you run? I'm not running. I'm leaving with my dignity intact. Something flickered in his chest. Respect. Curiosity. Something darker. And if I don't let you leave? Then you're no different than they are. The challenge in her voice was quiet but absolute. Behind them, the room watched in shocked silence. No one spoke to Leandro Costanzo like that. No one challenged him. His jaw tightened. The tattoo across his collarbone, hidden beneath his shirt, seemed to burn. Then his mother's voice cut through the tension. Leandro. Let her pass. He didn't move for 3 long seconds. Long enough for Talia to see the war in his eyes. Long enough for him to memorize the exact shade of amber in hers. Then he stepped aside. She walked past him without another word, without looking back. The doors closed behind her with a soft click that sounded like a gunshot. Leandro turned to face the room. Every conversation had stopped. Every eye was on him. His gaze found Valentina Romano, who suddenly looked much smaller. Get out. His voice was quiet. I beg your pardon? You're no longer welcome in my home. Leave. Now. Valentina's husband started to protest. Leandro's stare silenced him. Anyone else have comments about my staff? Leandro's question was almost conversational. About my mother? No one moved. No one breathed. Good. He turned to his mother, pressed a kiss to her forehead. The tenderness was jarring after the threat in his voice. I'll handle this. Leandro. But he was already moving, following the path Talia had taken, the tattoo on his knuckles flexing as his hands curled into fists. Talia made it to the staff quarters before her composure cracked. Her hands shook as she stripped off the uniform, replacing it with jeans and a sweater. 3 years. 3 years of biting her tongue, of enduring casual cruelty from people who saw her as furniture. And she'd just thrown it all away for one moment of defiance. Stupid. So stupid. She grabbed her bag, shoving in the few belongings she kept here. She'd find another job. He always did. The Costanzo name on her resume would help or hurt, depending on what story they told about tonight. A knock at the door froze her mid-motion. Talia. Maria's voice. May I come in? She closed her eyes, steadied her breath, opened the door. Maria stood there, still elegant, but her eyes were soft. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. Why? Talia met her gaze. Because you've been kind to me. And kindness is rare enough that it should be defended. Maria's expression shifted into something Talia couldn't quite name. You're not fired. I quit. I'm not accepting your resignation. Signora. You defended me when no one else would. Not even my sons. Maria stepped into the small room. Do you know what that means to me? Talia looked away. It was nothing. It was everything. Maria touched her arm gently. Stay. Please. I'll triple your salary. You'll work directly for me, no one else. I can't. Why not? Because your son looked at me like I was prey and salvation and danger all at once, and I can't survive being seen like that. I just can't. Before Maria could respond, heavy footsteps echoed in the hallway. Leandro appeared in the doorway, filling the frame completely. His jacket was gone, his shirt sleeves rolled up to reveal the tattoo that snaked up his right forearm. Intricate, beautiful, threatening. Madre. His eyes didn't leave Talia. Give us a moment. Maria looked between them, then nodded slowly. I'll be in my study. She left, closing the door behind her. The room suddenly felt too small. Leandro stepped inside and Talia's instinct screamed at her to step back. He didn't. Wouldn't give him the satisfaction. You have courage, he said quietly. Or a death wish. Maybe both. His lips twitched. Almost a smile. What's your full name? Why? Because I want to know who just challenged an entire room of people who could destroy her with a phone call. They could try. They could succeed. He moved closer, slow, deliberate. Not threatening. Just inevitable. Do you know who I am? Everyone knows who you are. Then you know what I'm capable of. Yes. Her heart hammered. I also know what you choose to do with that capability. And so far you've been fair. Something dangerous flickered in his eyes. Fair. That's what you think of me. I think you're more than the rumors say. Less than the legends claim. And exactly as dangerous as you need to be. Silence stretched between them. Leandro's gaze dropped to her bag, packed and ready. You're still leaving. Yes. Why? Because I don't belong in your world. You just proved otherwise. I proved I can speak up. Not that I can survive what comes after. He stepped closer. Close enough that she could see the faint scar above his left eyebrow, the exact pattern of the tattoo on his collarbone peeking above his collar. What if I asked you to stay? Her breath caught. Why would you? Because you're the first person in 5 years to look at me without fear or greed in their eyes. I have plenty of fear. But no greed. His voice dropped lower. That's rare. Valuable. I'm not for sale, Mr. Costanzo. Leandro. The correction was soft. And I'm not trying to buy you. I'm trying to keep you from making a mistake. Leaving isn't a mistake. Running is. The word hit harder than it should have. I'm not running, she said, but her voice wavered. Then prove it. Stay. Why does it matter to you? He was silent for a long moment, his jaw working. The tattoo on his knuckles flexed as his hand curled at his side. I don't know yet, he finally said. But it does. Talia's chest tightened. This was dangerous. This conversation, this man, this moment. Everything in her screamed to walk away. But Maria's kindness anchored her. And something in Leandro's eyes, something raw and uncertain beneath all that control, made her hesitate. If I stay, she said slowly, things go back to how they were. I work for your mother. I stay invisible. Impossible. Why? Because you just made yourself very visible. And in my world that changes everything. Then I definitely should leave. Talia. Her name on his lips was almost gentle. I'm not the enemy. You're not my friend either. No, he agreed. I'm not. The air between them crackled with unspoken things. A phone buzzed. Leandro pulled it from his pocket, glanced at the screen. His expression hardened. I have to go. Business. He looked at her and for a moment she saw past the armor. Will you still be here tomorrow? He should say no. She'd grab her bag and disappear into the night. Instead she heard herself say, "I'll think about it." His eyes darkened. "That's not good enough. It's all I can give you right now." He stared at her for a long waited moment. Then he nodded once, sharp and final. "Tomorrow morning. 7 a.m. My mother's study. If you're not there I'll know your answer." He turned and left before she could respond. Talia stood alone in the small room, her bag packed, her future uncertain, her heart racing from an encounter that felt more dangerous than any threat Valentina Romano could have made. Through the window she watched Leandro cross the courtyard to a black car. He paused before getting in, looked back at the staff quarters. Even from this distance she felt the weight of his gaze. Then he was gone and she was left with a choice that felt like jumping off a cliff, terrifying and inevitable all at once. Leandro sat in the back of the car, his jaw tight, his mind racing. Marco was in the driver's seat, grinning. "So, the maid." "Shut up. She's got fire. I'll give her that." "Marco." "What?" "I'm just saying you looked at her like." "Like what?" Leandro's voice was ice. Marco's grin faded. "Like she mattered." Silence filled the car. "Where are we going?" Marco finally asked. "The docks. Ricci's trying to skim from the shipment." "How do you know?" "Because everyone tries to skim. It's just a matter of when." They drove in silence for a while, the city lights blurring past. Leandro's mind should have been on business, on the meeting ahead, on the 100 things that required his attention. Instead he kept seeing amber eyes. A straight spine. A quiet voice saying someone should. His phone buzzed. A text from his mother. "She's still here. For now." He didn't respond. But something in his chest eased. Talia didn't sleep. She sat on the narrow bed in her room, staring at her packed bag, at the small collection of things that made up her entire life. A photo of her parents, long dead. A book of poetry worn at the edges. A silver bracelet her mother had given her before the accident. That was it. That was everything. She could walk away. Start over. Or she could stay. In a world that had just shown her its teeth. In a house owned by a man who looked at her like he could see straight through her carefully constructed walls. Dangerous didn't begin to cover it. But Maria's kindness. That mattered. And Talia had so little to hold on to. That kindness felt like treasure. She thought about her mother's last words. "Find something worth fighting for, Talia. And when you do, don't let fear steal it from you." Was this worth fighting for? The job? Dignity? The fragile sense of belonging she'd felt when Maria smiled at her? Or was she just tired of running? At 6:30 a.m. she made her decision. She unpacked her bag. Leandro returned to the estate at dawn, blood on his knuckles that wasn't his, exhaustion pulling at his bones. Ricci had been dealt with. The message sent. Business as usual. He showered, changed, stared at himself in the mirror. The tattoos that covered his body told stories. Famiglia sopra tutto on his knuckles. Family above all. The crest on his chest. Legacy and burden. The words along his ribs in his father's handwriting. Il potere ricciede sacrificio. Power requires sacrifice. He'd lived by those words his entire life. Now a maid with amber eyes had made him question what he was willing to sacrifice. At 6:55 he walked to his mother's study. She was already there, sitting behind the mahogany desk, reading glasses perched on her nose. "Is she coming?" he asked. "I don't know." Maria looked up at him. "What did you say to her?" "That she should stay." "Why?" He didn't have an answer that made sense. So he said nothing. The clock on the mantel ticked toward 7. Leandro stood by the window, hands in his pockets, jaw tight. The door opened at precisely 7 a.m. Talia stepped inside, wearing a simple black dress, her hair pulled back, her eyes meeting his for a fraction of a second before moving to Maria. "Signora, you asked me to be here." Relief flooded through him, sharp and unexpected. Maria smiled. "I did. Please sit." Talia sat in the chair across from the desk. Leandro remained standing by the window, a silent presence. "I meant what I said last night," Maria began. "I want you working directly for me. No more public events unless you choose to attend. Better pay. Your own quarters in the main house." Talia's eyes widened. "Signora, I can't." "You can." "You will." Maria's voice was firm but kind. "You've earned it." "I don't understand." You defended me when you had nothing to gain and everything to lose. That kind of loyalty is rare. Precious. Maria glanced at Leandro, then back to Talia. In this family we protect those who protect us. Talia was quiet for a long moment. And if I accept, what exactly would my duties be? Companion. Assistant. Whatever I need. Maria's smile turned knowing. And buffer between me and my sons when they get too protective. Despite everything, Talia's lips twitched. Almost a smile. The main house, she said slowly. That's where where the family lives. Yes. I'd be more visible. Yes. People will talk. They always do. Maria leaned forward. The question is whether you let their talk control you. Talia looked down at her hands, then up at Leandro, who was watching her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. What do you think? She asked him. The question surprised them both. Leandro's jaw worked. The tattoo on his neck, partially hidden by his collar, seemed to pulse with his heartbeat. I think, he said carefully, that you should do what feels right. Not what feels safe. Those aren't always different things. In your case they are. Silence hung between them, weighted with meaning neither could name. Finally Talia turned back to Maria. I'll accept. On one condition. Name it. I want to continue my education. Online classes. I'll work around them, but I need that for myself. Maria's smile widened. Done. What are you studying? Art history. Leandro's eyebrows rose fractionally. He hadn't expected that. Beautiful, Maria said. And appropriate. This house is full of art that needs proper appreciation. They discussed details. Salary, schedule, living arrangements. Leandro listened, said nothing, watched the way Talia's hands moved when she was nervous, the way her eyes lit up when Maria mentioned the estate's private library. When the meeting ended, Talia stood to leave. Talia, Leandro said. He paused, looked back. Welcome to the family. The words were simple. The weight behind them was anything but. She nodded once, then left, closing the door softly behind her. Maria waited until her footsteps faded before speaking. You're interested in her. It wasn't a question. She's intriguing, Leandro said carefully. She's vulnerable. I know. Then be careful, figlio mio. With her. With yourself. I'm always careful. Maria laughed softly. That's what worries me. You're too controlled. Someday that control is going to break, and when it does... She shook her head. Just don't hurt her. I won't. You might not mean to. But your world is brutal. And she's not built for it. She's stronger than you think. Perhaps. Maria stood, moved to the window. Or perhaps you see strength in her because you want to. Need to. Leandro didn't respond. Guess she was right. The first week passed in careful distance. Talia moved into her new quarters. A suite on the second floor with a bedroom, bathroom and small sitting area. It was more space than she'd ever had, more luxury than she could process. She worked alongside Maria, organizing correspondence, managing schedules, accompanying her on errands. The older woman treated her with respect and warmth that Talia wasn't used to. And Leandro kept his distance. She saw him in passing. At breakfast when he'd nod to his mother and ignore everyone else. In hallways where he'd pause if they crossed paths, his eyes tracking her movement before he continued on. He never spoke to her directly. But she felt him watching. It was Marco who broke the ice. So you're the maid who made Valentina Romano cry, he said one afternoon, cornering her in the library. His tattoo, identical to Leandro's but on his left hand, caught the light as he leaned against a bookshelf. I didn't make her cry. You made her leave in shame. That's better. He grinned. I like you. That's unsettling. He laughed. Most people are unsettled by me. You'll get used to it. I'd rather not. Too late. We're family now. Sort of. His expression turned curious. What do you think of my brother? Talia's guard went up immediately. I think he's your brother and my employer's son. That's all I need to think. Liar. Excuse me. You look at him the same way he looks at you. Like you're trying to solve a puzzle that might explode. I don't. It's fine. He needs someone to shake him up. God knows he's been wound too tight since our father died. The casual mention of death made Talia pause. I'm sorry for your loss. Marco's grin faded. Don't be. He was a bastard. Leandro's better. Before she could respond, Leandro himself appeared in the doorway. Marco. Don't you have somewhere to be? Nope. Find somewhere. Marco's grin returned. Overprotective already. Interesting. He pushed off the bookshelf, winked at Talia and sauntered out, leaving her alone with Leandro. He didn't move from the doorway. The tattoo on his collarbone was visible above his unbuttoned collar, dark ink against golden skin. He's annoying, Leandro said. He's honest. That's worse. Despite herself, Talia almost smiled. Did you need something? My mother asked me to tell you dinner is at 7. She wants you to join us. The family dinner? Yes. I'm not family. She thinks you are. His eyes held hers. And what my mother wants she gets. Even from you? Especially from me. Talia studied him. This man who commanded fear from hardened criminals but softened into tenderness around his mother. Contradictions wrapped in control. I'll be there, she said. He nodded, started to leave, then paused. Talia. Yes. Thank you. For what? For staying. Before she could respond, he was gone. Dinner was strange. Talia sat at the massive table, Maria at the head, Leandro to her right, Marco to her left, and Talia beside Marco. 2 other people were present. Cousins, she learned. They treated her with curiosity but not hostility. The food was incredible. The conversation was careful. Until Marco inevitably stirred things up. So Talia. What made you defend our mother? Honestly. Everyone's attention turned to her. Talia set down her fork carefully. She's been kind to me. Kindness should be returned. Even when it costs you? Especially then. Leandro's eyes were on her, dark and unreadable. Most people wouldn't risk their job for a principal, Marco continued. Then most people have forgotten what principles are for. Maria smiled. Well said. The conversation moved on, but Talia felt Leandro's gaze linger. After dinner, as everyone dispersed, he caught her in the hallway. Walk with me. It wasn't a request, but it wasn't a command either. She nodded. They walked through the estate's garden, the evening air cool, the lights from the house casting long shadows. Leandro's hands were in his pockets, his stride measured. You make Marco laugh, he said finally. That's rare. He seems to laugh easily. On the surface. But he's carrying ghosts. Leandro glanced at her. We all are. What ghosts are you carrying? Bold question. Maybe too bold. But Leandro didn't seem offended. The usual. Dead father. Violent legacy. Expectations that crush everything soft out of you. Is that why you keep everyone at a distance? It's why I keep most people at a distance. Most. He stopped walking, turned to face her. The garden lights illuminated his features. Sharp jaw, dark eyes, the tattoo on his neck that read something in script too small for her to read from here. You're different, he said simply. Different how? You don't want anything from me. I want to keep my job. No. You want to earn your job. There's a distinction. He stepped closer. Everyone else wants me to be something. The boss. The protector. The heir. The monster. You just want me to be human. Fair. The word echoed what she'd said to him that first night. Is that so rare? She asked softly. You have no idea. They stood in the garden, close enough that she could see the faint scar tissue on his knuckles, the way his jaw tightened when he was thinking. Can I ask you something? Talia said. Yes. That night at the gala. When you blocked my path. Were you trying to intimidate me or stop me? Both. Neither. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. I don't know what I was doing. I just knew I couldn't let you walk away. Why? Because you looked at my mother the way I wish more people would. With respect. With genuine care. His voice dropped. And then you looked at me like I was a man instead of a monster. And you what? I wanted you to keep looking at me like that. The confession hung between them, vulnerable and dangerous. Talia's breath caught. Leandro. I know. It's inappropriate. You work for my mother. You're in an impossible position. I shouldn't be telling you any of this. Then why are you? Because I'm tired of being careful. Of being controlled. Of pretending I don't feel things I shouldn't feel. He was close now. Too close. She should step back. Should maintain the distance that kept her safe. But she didn't move. What do you feel? The question came out barely above a whisper. Leandro's eyes searched hers. Everything. Nothing. Too much. His hand lifted, hovering near her face like he wanted to touch her but didn't trust himself to. I should go, Talia said, but she didn't move. Yes. You should. Neither of them moved. The moment stretched, fragile and electric. Then Leandro's phone rang. The spell broke. He pulled back, checked the screen, cursed under his breath. I have to take this. Of course. He answered the call, his voice shifting instantly into cold authority. What is it? When? I'll be there in 20 minutes. He hung up, looked at her with frustration and something like regret. Business. It's fine. Go. Talia. Go, she said more firmly. Whatever it is, it's more important than this conversation. No, he said quietly. It's not. But he left anyway because duty always came first. Talia stood alone in the garden, her heart racing, her mind spinning, wondering what the hell she'd just gotten herself into. 3 days later she found out. She was in the library researching for one of her online classes, when raised voices erupted from Leandro's study. She shouldn't listen. Shouldn't care. But the tone made her pause. You can't be serious. Marco's voice, unusually sharp. I'm always serious. Leandro. She's nobody. A maid. She's under this family's protection. That makes her somebody. Talia's stomach dropped. The Rossi family is asking questions, Marco continued. They heard about the gala. About her. They think she's important to you. She is. Silence. Cristo Leandro. Do you know what you've done? I know exactly what I've done. Then you know what's coming. They'll use her. They'll threaten her to get to you. Let them try. This isn't a game. I never said it was. Leandro's voice was cold. Final. Increase security. Put a man on her. I don't care if she notices. I want her protected. You're making her a target. She became a target the moment she stood up for our mother. I'm just making sure the target is protected. Footsteps approached the door. Talia moved quickly, ducking behind a bookshelf. Marco emerged first, his face tight with anger. Leandro followed, his expression carved from stone. Neither of them saw her. When they were gone, Talia stood frozen, her mind racing. Protected. Target. Rossi family. What had she walked into? That night she couldn't sleep. Every shadow seemed threatening. Every creak of the old house made her jump. At 2 a.m. she gave up and went to the kitchen for water. Leandro was already there. He stood by the window, shirtless, his body a map of tattoos and scars. The ink covered his chest, his ribs, his arms. Art and armor combined. He turned when she entered, unsurprised. Can't sleep? He asked. No. She poured water with shaking hands. You. Never could. They stood in silence, the kitchen dim, the night pressing against the windows. I heard you, Talia said finally. Earlier. Talking to Marco. Leandro's jaw tightened. How much? Enough. She set down her glass. Who are the Rossi family? And why am I a target? He was quiet for a long moment. Then, they're rivals. Dangerous. And you're a target because you matter to my mother. To this family. To you. The question hung between them. Yes, he said simply. To me. Why? I don't have a good answer for that yet. Then give me a bad one. His lips twitched. Almost a smile. Because you're the first person in my entire life who looked at me and saw something worth defending instead of something to fear. Talia's breath caught. I do fear you. I know. But you defend me anyway. I defended your mother. Same thing. She shook her head. This is insane. I should leave. Before whatever's happening here destroys me. You're right. He moved closer, slow and deliberate. You should leave. Run far away from this house, this family, this life. Then why are you asking me to stay? Because I'm selfish. Because I want you here even though it's dangerous. Even though I know I shouldn't. He stopped in front of her, close enough that she could see the exact pattern of the tattoo over his heart. A compass rose. Because for the first time in my life I want something for myself instead of for the family. I'm not a thing to be wanted. No. You're a person who deserves better than me. His voice dropped. But I'm going to be selfish anyway and ask you to stay. Why should I? Because you're already in danger whether you stay or go. At least here I can protect you. I don't want to be protected. I want to be safe. In my world, protection is the closest thing to safety you'll get. The honesty in his voice was brutal. Talia looked up at him. This man covered in ink and scars, built from violence and control, who somehow made her feel seen in a way no one else ever had. I hate this, she whispered. I know. I hate that you're right. That leaving won't make me safer. I know. I hate that I want to stay. His hand lifted, cupped her face with surprising gentleness. The tattoo on his knuckles brushed her cheek. Then stay, he said softly. Let me keep you safe. Even if you hate it. And if I can't handle your world, then I'll change my world. The promise was absurd. Impossible. But the certainty in his eyes made her almost believe it. He pulled back, breaking the contact. I need time. To think. How much time? I don't know. Talia. Please. Her voice cracked. I need to figure out if I'm brave or just stupid. And I can't do that with you looking at me like that. Like what? Like I'm something precious. You are. The words hit her like a physical blow. She turned and fled, leaving him alone in the kitchen, surrounded by shadows and the weight of things he couldn't say. The next morning everything changed. Talia woke to chaos. Shouting. Running footsteps. The sound of cars screeching away from the estate. She dressed quickly, emerged into the hallway to find guards everywhere. Maria appeared, her face pale but composed. Talia. Stay inside. Don't go near the windows. What's happening? The Rossi family made a move. Leandro's handling it. Where is he? Where he always is when there's trouble. At the center of it. Fear clawed at Talia's chest. Is he in danger? Maria's eyes softened. Always. But he knows what he's doing. The hours crawled by. Talia tried to focus on work, on her studies, on anything but the images her mind conjured of Leandro bleeding, dying, gone. When had he become important enough to terrify her like this? Evening fell. Still no word. Marco appeared, his jaw tight. He's fine. Deal's done. He'll be back soon. What kind of deal? Marco's expression darkened. The kind you don't want details about. But she did want details. Wanted to understand this world she'd stumbled into, this life built on violence and loyalty and impossible choices. At midnight, Leandro finally returned. Talia was in the library. She'd been unable to sleep, unable to focus. When she heard his voice in the hallway, something in her chest unclenched. She found him in his study, pouring whiskey with hands that were bruised but steady. He looked up when she entered, surprise flickering across his features. You're still awake, he said. I was worried. The admission hung between them. Leandro set down the bottle. About me? Yes. Why? I don't know. She moved closer, cataloging the damage. Bruised knuckles. Split lip. Blood on his collar that might have been his or someone else's. Are you hurt? Not badly. Let me see. Talia. Please. He sighed, sat on the edge of his desk. Let her approach. She examined his hands, her touch gentle. The tattoos made it hard to see the bruising, but she could feel the swelling. You need ice, she said. I've had worse. That's not reassuring. His lips twitched. It wasn't meant to be. She looked up, met his eyes. What happened? I made it clear that you're under Costanzo protection. Anyone who threatens you answers to me. You started a war over me? I prevented one. There's a distinction. Leandro. They needed to understand that you matter. Now they do. But I don't matter. Not enough for this. His hand caught hers, held it against his chest where she could feel his heartbeat through the tattoos. You matter to me. That makes you matter to them. This is crazy. Welcome to my world. She should pull away. Should run. Should do anything but stand here with her hand pressed to his chest, feeling the evidence of his violence and his vulnerability combined. Instead she said, Tell me about your tattoos. Surprise flickered in his eyes. Why? Because they're part of you. And I want to understand. He was quiet for a moment. Then he released her hand, began unbuttoning his shirt. Talia's breath caught as he revealed the full canvas of ink. The compass rose over his heart. Italian script along his ribs. A family crest across his shoulders. Names she couldn't read down his side. My father's handwriting, he said, touching the script on his ribs. Il potere richit sacrificio. Power requires sacrifice. Do you believe that? I've lived it. She traced the compass rose carefully, feeling him tense under her touch. And this. So I never lose my way. Have you? Every day. His voice was rough. Until recently. What changed? You. The word was simple. The weight behind it was crushing. Talia's hand stilled over his heart. I can't be your compass, Leandro. I don't know where I'm going myself. Then we'll figure it out together. That's not how this works. It is now. She looked up at him, at this dangerous man who somehow made her feel safer than she'd felt in years, and knew she was already lost. I'm scared, she whispered. Good. Fear keeps you alive. I'm scared of you. Even better. Fear keeps you smart. I'm scared of how you make me feel. His hand lifted to her face, thumb brushing her cheek. And how do I make you feel? Like I matter. Like I'm more than what I've been told I am. Like maybe. She swallowed hard. Like maybe I could be brave enough for this. You're already brave enough. You don't know that. I do. You've proven it every day since we met. His forehead dropped to hers, close enough that she could feel his breath, smell the whiskey and blood and something uniquely him. Stay, he whispered. Please. Let me protect you. Let me. A knock at the door interrupted them. They pulled apart as Marco entered, his expression grim. We have a problem, he said, not even pretending he hadn't seen their proximity. What now? Leandro's voice was cold again, controlled. Valentina Romano. She's dead. Silence crashed over the room. How? Leandro asked. Car accident. But the Rossi family is saying it wasn't an accident. They're blaming us. Why would we? Because Talia humiliated her. Because you threw her out. Because it gives them an excuse to escalate. Leandro's jaw clenched. They're framing us. Obviously. But the authorities are asking questions. And Valentina's husband is powerful enough to make this stick. Talia's blood ran cold. This is my fault. No, Leandro said immediately. This is strategy. They would have found another excuse. But they're using me. Which means they see you as leverage. Marco looked between them. Which means she can't stay here. It's too obvious. Too easy to target. Then where? Leandro's voice was sharp. Safe house. Outside the city. Until this blows over. I'll go with her. You can't. If you disappear it looks like guilt. You need to stay here, handle the fallout, make the family look clean. Leandro's hands curled into fists. The tattoo on his knuckles seemed to pulse. No. Leandro. I'm not sending her away alone. She won't be alone. I'll go with her. Take 3 guards. No one will know where she is except us. Marco. It's the smart play and you know it. Talia watched the conflict tear across Leandro's face. Duty against desire, logic against instinct. Finally he looked at her. What do you want? The question surprised her. He was giving her a choice. I don't want to make things worse, she said quietly. If leaving helps. It doesn't help me. But it helps your family. Your mother. The people counting on you. His jaw worked. She could see the war in his eyes. How long? He asked Marco. Few days. Maybe a week. Just until we can prove the Rossi family is lying. Leandro nodded once, sharp. Then to Talia. Pack light. You leave in an hour. Leandro. If you're going now. Before they have time to plan anything else. She nodded, started toward the door. Talia. She turned back. He crossed the distance between them in 2 strides, pulled her against him in an embrace that was fierce and desperate and over too soon. Come back to me, he whispered against her hair. I'm not yours to come back to. Yes you are. You just don't know it yet. He released her before she could respond, stepping back with visible effort. She fled the room, her heart pounding, her world tilting on its axis. An hour later she stood by a black car, a small bag at her feet. Marco was checking weapons with the guards. Maria was giving last-minute instructions. The whole thing felt surreal. Leandro appeared, dressed in dark clothes, his face a mask. He pulled Marco aside, spoke quietly. She couldn't hear the words, but she saw Marco nod, saw something pass between them. Then Leandro walked to her. "Stay safe," he said. "You too." His hand reached out, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was achingly gentle. "When this is over," he said, "we're going to have a conversation." "About what?" "About why you're terrified of the way I look at you. About what you're running from. About what the hell I'm supposed to do with how I feel." "Leandro. Just think about it. While you're gone. Think about whether you can handle this. My world. My life. Me. And if I can't?" Pain flashed across his face. "Then I'll let you go. Even though it'll destroy me." Before she could respond, he turned and walked back to the house. Marco appeared at her elbow. "Time to go." She got in the car, watched through the window as the estate disappeared behind them. Watched as Leandro stood in the doorway, a silhouette against the light, watching her leave. And for the first time in her life, Talia realized she was running towards something instead of away from it. She just didn't know if she'd survive the impact. Talia has been sent to a safe house while being framed for connection to Valentina Romano's suspicious death. The Rossi family is using her as leverage against Leandro. She's separated from him just as their feelings have become undeniable. The danger is escalating. Leandro is torn between duty and desire, and Talia is beginning to realize she cares far more than she should. The safe house was a villa 30 miles outside Milan, hidden behind iron gates and cypress trees. Beautiful. Isolated. A gilded cage. Talia stood at the window of her assigned room, watching the sun set over unfamiliar hills. 3 days. She'd been here 3 days and the silence was suffocating. Marco checked on her regularly, always professional, always armed. The guards rotated shifts outside her door. Everyone was polite. Everyone was watching. He felt like a prisoner and a princess simultaneously. Her phone buzzed. A text from Maria. "How are you holding up, Cara?" Talia typed back. "I'm fine. How is he?" The response came quickly, furious. "Restrained. Dangerous. Missing you." Her chest tightened. She shouldn't miss him. Shouldn't care about whether he was sleeping, eating, handling the crisis. But every hour that passed felt like missing a heartbeat. Another text. "He won't say it, but he calls Marco every 2 hours to check on you." Despite everything, Talia smiled. Then her phone rang. Unknown number. She shouldn't answer. Marco had been clear about that. But something made her pick up. "Hello." Silence. Then a voice, smooth and cold. "Talia Mancuso. The little maid who's caused so much trouble." Her blood turned to ice. "Who is this?" "Someone who wants to give you a message for Leandro Costanzo." "I don't know what." "Don't lie. It's unbecoming." The voice carried amusement. "Tell him that Valentina Romano's death was just the beginning. Tell him that protecting you will cost him everything. And tell him, we know exactly where you are." The line went dead. Talia's hands shook as she dropped the phone. She ran to the door, yanked it open. The guard turned, alert. "I need Marco. Now." 5 minutes later, Marco stood in her room, his face carved from stone as she repeated the conversation. "They know I'm here," she finished. "How is that possible?" "It shouldn't be." Marco pulled out his phone, typed rapidly. "Only 5 people knew this location. Then one of them told. Or one of them is listening." He moved to the window, scanned the grounds. "Pack. We're moving you." "Where?" "I don't know yet. Somewhere even more remote." He turned to her and for the first time she saw fear in his eyes. "They're escalating faster than we anticipated." "Why? What do they want?" "To break Leandro. To prove he has weaknesses." Marco's jaw tightened. "You're the weakness they've found." The words should have hurt. Instead they clarified everything. "Then I need to leave." "Really leave?" "Disappear." "He won't allow it." "He doesn't have a choice." "I won't be the thing that destroys him." Marco studied her for a long moment. "You really care about him?" It wasn't a question, but she answered anyway. "Yes." "Enough to walk away?" "If it keeps him safe." "That's not how this works. You walk away, they'll still use you. Hunt you. Hurt you to hurt him." Marco's expression softened slightly. "The only way out is through." Through what? Whatever's coming. Before she could respond, gunfire erupted outside. Marco moved instantly, grabbing her arm, pulling her away from the window. Stay down. More shots. Shouting. The sound of cars screeching. They found us, Talia breathed. Stay here. Don't open this door for anyone but me. Marco drew his weapon, moved toward the hallway. Wait. But he was gone, the door slamming behind him. Talia crouched behind the bed, her heart hammering. More gunfire. Closer now. Glass shattering somewhere below. Her phone buzzed. She grabbed it with shaking hands. Leandro. Are you safe? She typed, they're attacking. Marco's gone. I don't know what to do. The response was immediate. Hide. Don't fight. I'm coming. You can't, it's a trap. I don't care. Leandro, please. I'm already on my way. Stay alive until I get there. Tears blurred her vision. He was going to get himself killed. For her. The door to her room exploded inward. A man stepped through the smoke, not Marco, not one of the guards. Someone else. Tall, scarred, holding a gun. Talia Mancuso, he said in accented Italian. You're coming with me. No. Her voice shook but held. He smiled. It was a terrible thing. That wasn't a request. He moved toward her. She grabbed the nearest object, a lamp, and threw it. He dodged easily, laughing. Leandro Costanzo chose poorly. You're not even worth the trouble. He reached for her. The window behind her exploded. Marco came through it in a controlled roll, gun already firing. The man went down, blood spreading across the floor. Marco grabbed Talia, pulled her toward the broken window. We're going out the hard way. Can you climb? She nodded, mute with shock. Good. Stay close. They went through the window onto a narrow ledge. Below, the grounds were chaos. Guards fighting, cars burning, bodies on the ground. Marco led her along the ledge to a drain pipe. Climb down. Fast. She didn't argue. Her hands burned on the metal, her arms shaking, but she made it to the ground. Marco landed beside her, already moving. The garage. There's a car. They ran. Bullets whined past them. Marco returned fire without breaking stride, his movements economical and lethal. They reached the garage. A motorcycle stood waiting, Marco's backup plan. Get on, he ordered. She climbed on behind him. He kicked the engine to life and they exploded out of the garage into chaos. The gates were ahead, blocked by a burning car. Hold on. Marco gunned the engine. They jumped the sidewalk, crashed through a section of fence and roared onto the open road. Behind them the safe house burned. They stopped 20 miles away in a rest area off the highway. Marco's hands shook as he pulled out his phone. You're hurt, Talia said, noticing blood on his arm. It's nothing. He was already dialing. Leandro. We're out. Yeah, she's fine. 3 guards dead, 2 wounded. I know. We're heading to the secondary location. No, you can't meet us there, it's too. He stopped. Listen. His expression shifted. Cristo. You're serious. That's suicide. He won't. Fine. But if you die, I'm not explaining it to Madre. He hung up, looked at Talia. Change of plans. What's happening? Leandro's going to the Rossi family. Directly. Tonight. Her heart stopped. He can't. He's challenging their Don to a meeting. Demanding they end this. They'll kill him. Probably. Marco's voice was grim. But he's betting they'll want to hear what he has to say first. What could he possibly say? Marco met her eyes. That he's willing to trade something they want for your safety. What could they possibly want that? She stopped. Understanding crashed over her. No. He wouldn't. Territory. Power. Resources. Marco's jaw tightened. He's going to give them everything they've been fighting for. In exchange for guaranteed protection for you and our family. That's insane. Talia couldn't breathe. He'll lose everything. Not everything. He'll have you alive. I won't let him do this. You don't have a choice. It's already done. Marco started the motorcycle again. We're meeting him after. If he survives. They rode through the night, and Talia's mind raced with everything unsaid, everything unfinished between her and a man who was about to destroy himself to save her. Leandro walked into the Rossi compound alone. It was a statement. A challenge. A surrender. Armed men lined the hallway, weapons trained on him. He kept his hands visible, his face calm. The tattoo on his neck was exposed above his collar. A deliberate choice. Let them see who he was. What he represented. The Don sat in a mahogany study, old and sharp-eyed. Dangerous despite his age. Leandro Costanzo. His voice was like gravel. You have courage. Or you have a death wish. Neither. I have a proposal. I don't negotiate with men who disrespect my allies. Valentina Romana wasn't your ally. She was a pawn you sacrificed to create conflict. The Don's eyes narrowed. Prove it. I don't need to prove it. You know it. I know it. The only question is whether you're willing to end this before it costs both our families more than you want to pay. Silence. What are you offering? The Don finally asked. The southern ports. The shipping contracts with the Eastern Europeans. The protection racket in the financial district. Leandro's voice was flat. Each concession was a knife to his chest. Territory my father fought for. Resources that give us leverage over half the city. In exchange for? You leave Talia Mancuso alone. Forever. You guarantee her safety, her freedom, her life. No threats, no surveillance, no games. The Don leaned back. One woman. You'd sacrifice that much for one woman? Yes. She must be extraordinary. She is. Or you must be weak. Think what you want. Do we have a deal? The Don studied him for a long moment. Why should I believe you'll honor it? The Costanzo family is known for creative interpretations of agreements. Because if I break my word, you have permission to kill me. Leandro's voice was steel. Not my family. Not my interests. Me. Personally. The room went silent. You'd stake your life on this girl? Yes. Why? Because she looks at me like I'm human. Because she defended my mother when no one else would. Because she makes me want to be better than the monster my father built. But Leandro just said, because she matters. The Don laughed, sharp and bitter. Love. The most dangerous weakness of all. Do we have a deal or not? Another long silence. Then, I want the shipping contracts transferred within 48 hours. The ports within a week. Verified by neutral third parties. Agreed. And the girl disappears. Out of Milan. Out of Italy. Where I never have to think about her again. Leandro's jaw tightened. That's the deal. You want her safe? Get her away from this world. Away from you. The Don's smile was cruel. Because as long as she's near you, she's leverage. And leverage always gets used. Every instinct screamed at Leandro to refuse. To fight. To burn this compound to the ground rather than lose her. But the Don was right. As long as Talia was in his world, she'd be a target. A weakness. A weapon pointed at his heart. She goes where she wants, Leandro said finally. I don't control her. Then convince her. Or I will. The Don stood. You have 1 week to complete the transfers and remove her from Italy. After that, if she's still here, the deal is void. Leandro nodded once. We're done. One more thing. The Don's voice stopped him at the door. I respect what you're doing. Sacrificing power for love. It's noble. Stupid but noble. I don't need your respect. No. But you'll need luck. Because giving up power doesn't make you safe. It makes you prey. Leandro left without responding. Outside, Marco waited with the car, Talia in the back seat. She saw his face and knew immediately. What did you do? She whispered as he got in. What I had to. Leandro. Not now. His voice was raw. Please. Not now. They drove in silence back to the estate. The main house felt different. Colder. Like it knew what was coming. Maria waited in the study, her face drawn. She looked at Leandro, at the exhaustion in his eyes, and understood without words. You gave them the ports, she said. And the shipping contracts. And the financial district. Figlio. Her voice broke. It was necessary. For her. Yes. Maria looked at Talia, who stood frozen in the doorway. Do you know what he's sacrificed for you? I'm beginning to understand. Do you love him? The question was direct. Brutal. Talia's throat closed. I don't know. Then you should leave. No. Before you hurt him worse than any enemy could. Madre, Leandro said sharply. No. Maria's eyes flashed. She has a right to know what her presence costs. What her uncertainty costs. That's not fair. Nothing about this is fair. Maria's composure cracked. You've destroyed everything your father built. Given our enemies the leverage they've wanted for years. Put yourself in danger to save a woman who can't even tell you if she loves you. Silence crashed over the room. Talia felt like she'd been struck. I never asked for this. No. You just accepted it. Maria's voice softened slightly. You're a good person, Talia. Kind. Brave. But you're also dangerous to my son. Because he'll destroy himself for you and you don't even know if you want him to. I don't want him to destroy himself. Then what do you want? The question hung in the air. Talia looked at Leandro. He stood by the window, his profile hard, the tattoo on his neck visible. Silent. Waiting. I want. Her voice shook. I want him to be safe. To have the power he needs to protect his family. To not have to choose between duty and whatever this is. That's not an option anymore, Maria said quietly. The choice is made. Now you need to decide if you're staying or going. The deal requires her to leave Italy, Leandro said flatly. Within a week. Talia's heart stopped. What? The Don's condition. You disappear. Completely. And you agreed to that? I agreed to keep you alive. By sending me away? By removing you from the line of fire. Finally he looked at her. The pain in his eyes was devastating. You'll be safe. That's all that matters. That's not all that matters. Yes, it is. You're a fool, she said, her voice breaking. You've given up everything for someone you barely know. I know enough. You don't know anything about me. My past, my scars, I know you defended my mother. I know you have nightmares about something you won't talk about. I know you bite your lip when you're nervous and that you read poetry when you can't sleep. His voice was rough. I know you look at me like I'm human instead of a monster. And I know that keeping you alive is worth more than any territory or contract or power. Tears burned her eyes. This isn't love, Leandro. This is obsession. Maybe. But it's the closest thing to love I've ever felt. The confession shattered something in her chest. I can't be the reason you lose everything. You're not the reason. You're the purpose. That's not enough. Maria's voice cut through the argument. You're both exhausted. Talia, go to your room. Rest. We'll discuss this tomorrow. Signora. Go. Please. Talia looked at Leandro one more time, saw the war in his eyes and fled. She didn't sleep. She paced her room, her mind spinning with impossible choices. Stay and be the weapon used against him. Leave and abandon the first place she'd felt like she mattered. Neither option was survivable. At 3 a.m. she made a decision. She packed her small bag, wrote a note and slipped out of her room. The guards were used to her midnight wanderings by now. They nodded as she passed, heading toward the library like she always did when she couldn't sleep. But this time she kept going. Through the servants' entrance, across the dark grounds, to the gate she'd watched the groundskeeper use. She was halfway through when a voice stopped her. Running again? Leandro stood in the shadows, still dressed from earlier, looking like he hadn't slept either. I'm making this easier for everyone. By disappearing in the middle of the night? By removing myself before I cause more damage. He moved closer and she saw the exhaustion in his face, the weight of his choices. Where will you go? Somewhere you can't follow. Somewhere they can't use me against you. Talia. You've sacrificed enough. I won't let you sacrifice more. That's not your choice to make. Yes, it is. You don't own me. You don't control me. Her voice cracked. And I won't be the reason you destroy yourself. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, what if I want to be destroyed for you? Then you're insane. Probably. He stepped closer. Close enough to touch. But I'm also clear. For the first time in my life, I know exactly what I want. And what's that? Here. Safe. Mine. The possessiveness in his voice should have terrified her. Instead it made her feel claimed. But precious. I'm not a possession, she whispered. No. You're a choice. And I'm choosing you. Even if it costs you everything? Especially then. She shook her head, tears spilling over. I don't understand you. Then let me explain. He cupped her face, thumbs brushing away her tears. My entire life has been about duty. Family. Legacy. Power. I've sacrificed everything soft, everything gentle, everything human to be what my father wanted me to be. Leandro. But you. His voice dropped. You make me want to be something different. Someone who protects instead of destroys. Who builds instead of burns. Who loves instead of. He stopped. The word hung between them, unsaid but deafening. You don't love me, Talia said. You can't. You barely know me. I know enough to know I'll never forgive myself if I let you walk away. And I'll never forgive myself if I let you throw your life away for me. They stood in the dark garden at an impasse, both trying to save the other from themselves. Come inside, Leandro said finally. Please. We'll figure this out. Together. There's nothing to figure out. The deal is done. I have to leave. Not tonight. Not like this. Why not? Because if you leave now, I'll spend the rest of my life wondering if you ran from me or from the situation. The honesty in his voice broke her. I'm running from both, she admitted. Because I'm terrified. Of what? Of this. Of you. Of how much I already care when I shouldn't. Her voice shook. Of how safe I feel with the most dangerous man I've ever met. Something fierce and tender crossed his face. You do feel safe with me? Yes. Which is insane. Why? Because you're a killer. A criminal. A man who makes people disappear. And yet you're not afraid I'll hurt you. No. I'm afraid I'll hurt you. He pulled her against him then, his arms wrapping around her like armor. She felt his heartbeat rapid and strong, felt the tattoos beneath his shirt, felt the barely controlled desperation in his grip. You couldn't hurt me if you tried, he murmured against her hair. I already am. By making you choose. I've already chosen. You just need to accept it. She pulled back enough to look at him. What happens after I leave Italy? What happens to you? I rebuild. Differently. Smarter. Alone. If necessary. That's not. Talia. He silenced her with a look. I need you to understand something. My whole life people have taken from me. My father took my childhood. The family business took my innocence. This world took every soft thing I had. He touched her face, gentle despite the violence in his hands. You're the first person who's ever given me something. Hope. Purpose. A reason to want something beyond survival. I haven't given you anything. You've given me everything. His forehead dropped to hers. So let me give you something back. Safety. Freedom. A life outside this darkness. I don't want a life without you in it. The words escaped before she could stop them. Leandro went still. What did you say? She swallowed hard. I don't want to leave. I don't want to be safe somewhere else while you're here alone rebuilding from ashes. I want. What do you want? I want to stay. With you. Even though it's dangerous and impossible and insane. His hands tightened on her. You have no idea what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying I choose you. Even knowing what it cost. Even knowing what it means. Talia. I'm saying I'm tired of running. Tired of being afraid. Tired of letting other people's cruelty determine my life. Her voice strengthened. You stood up for me. You sacrificed for me. Now let me stand with you. It's not that simple. Nothing about this is simple. But that doesn't make it wrong. He stared at her, something breaking and reforming in his eyes. Then he kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate and claiming and full of all the words they hadn't said. She kissed him back with equal desperation, her hands fisting in his shirt, feeling the tattoos beneath, feeling the proof that he was real and here in hers. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he kept his forehead pressed to hers. You can't stay, he said roughly. The deal. Then change the deal. It doesn't work like that. Make it work. You're Leandro Costanzo. You make the impossible happen every day. Not with this. Not when your life is at stake. She pulled back, looked him in the eye. Then we leave together. He froze. What? You heard me. We leave. Both of us. Let Marco run the family. Let your mother guide him. We disappear. Together. I can't abandon my family. You're not abandoning them. You're trusting them to survive without you. The same way you're asking me to survive without you. The parallel hit him hard. Where would we go? He asked, and she heard the desperate hope in his voice. I don't know. Somewhere small. Quiet. Where no one knows our names. You'd give up your education, your dreams. My dreams don't mean anything if I'm alone. She touched his face. And you've already proven you'd give up everything for me. Let me do the same for you. Talia. I love you. The words fell between them like stones into still water. You don't. I do. I think I have since you blocked my path at the gala and looked at me like you could see my soul. Her voice shook but held. I love you. Even though it's fast and reckless and terrifying. I love you. Leandro's control shattered. He kissed her again, harder this time, walking her backward until she hit the garden wall. His hands framed her face, his body a cage around hers, and she welcomed it, welcomed him, welcomed the overwhelming certainty that this was right. I love you, he said against her lips. Cristo, I love you so much it's killing me. Then let's die together. Or live together. Just don't ask me to do either without you. He pulled back, looked at her with such intensity she felt burned. If we do this, he said, there's no going back. We'll be hunted. By my enemies. Maybe by my family. We'll have nothing but each other. That's enough. You say that now. I'll say it forever. She gripped his shirt. I've spent my whole life being nothing to everyone. Let me be everything to you. His jaw worked. She saw the moment he broke. The moment he chose. One condition, he said roughly. Anything. You marry me. Tonight. Before we leave. So there's no question, no ambiguity, no way for anyone to claim you're not mine. Her breath caught. Leandro. Marry me, Talia. Not because you have to. Because you want to. Because you're as insane as I am. He should say no. Should be sensible. Should recognize this for the madness it was. Instead she said, yes. They were married at dawn in Maria's private chapel. The older woman had wept when Leandro told her his plan. Then she'd slapped him. Then she'd embraced him. You're a fool, she'd said. But you're my fool. And if this is what you need to be happy. It is. Maria had turned to Talia. You love him. Yes. Enough to live in hiding? To give up everything you know? Yes. Then I won't stop you. But I will say this. You break his heart and I'll hunt you myself. Despite everything, Talia had smiled. Deal. Now they stood in the small chapel, Marco as witness, a priest who'd served the family for decades presiding. Leandro wore all black, his tattoos visible at his collar and wrists. Talia wore a simple white dress Maria had given her. Something old, something borrowed. The vows were traditional. The feeling was anything but. When the priest pronounced them married, Leandro kissed her like a man claiming salvation. Mine, he whispered against her lips. Yours, she agreed. Behind them, Marco cleared his throat. Hate to interrupt, but we have a timeline. Leandro pulled back, kept one hand on Talia's waist. Everything ready? Papers, money, new identities. Cars waiting. Marco's expression was complicated. I still think this is insane. It is. But you're doing it anyway. Yes. Marco sighed, then smiled. Then I hope you're happy, Fratello. You deserve it. They embraced hard and quick. Take care of Madre, Leandro said. Always. You take care of your wife. With my life. Maria pressed documents into Talia's hands. Bank accounts. Safe deposit boxes. People who owe me favors in 6 countries. Use them if you need them. Signora. Madre, Maria corrected gently. Your family now. Call me Madre. Talia's eyes burned. Thank you. For everything. Thank you for loving my son. For seeing past what he has to be to who he wants to be. One final embrace. Then they were in the car, Marco driving, the estate disappearing behind them. They drove to a private airfield where a small plane waited. Where are we going? Talia asked. Greece first. Then we'll see. Leandro's hand found hers. Does it matter? No. At the airfield, Marco handed over the documents. Passports, licenses, everything you'll need. You're Luca and Giulia Ferraro now. Married 5 years, no kids, looking to start over. Ferraro. Leandro raised an eyebrow. Figured you'd appreciate the irony. Marco grinned. Alessandro Ferraro's going to lose his mind when he hears you took his family name. Despite everything, Leandro smiled. Marco turned serious. I'll handle the Rossi family. Renegotiate the deal. You gave them what they wanted, her gone from Italy. They don't need to know she's not alone. And if they find out? Then I'll handle that too. Marco's voice hardened. You gave up enough. It's my turn to protect this family. You'll make a good Don. I learned from the best. Marco pulled his brother into a fierce embrace. Be happy. That's an order. Since when do you give me orders? Since you made me acting head of the family. Marco's grin was sharp. Get used to it. They boarded the plane as the sun rose over Milan. Talia looked back one last time at the city that had been her prison and her salvation. Leandro squeezed her hand. Regrets? Not one. Lies. She smiled. Maybe a few. But not about you. The plane lifted off and with it their old lives fell away. 3 months later they lived in a small villa on a Greek island whose name most maps forgot. Leandro fished in the mornings. Talia painted in the afternoons. They made love like the world was ending and built a life like it was just beginning. No guards. No power. No violence. Just them. Talia sat on the terrace watching the sunset paint the sea gold, her hand resting on her stomach where their future was growing. She hadn't told him yet. Wanted to find the right moment. Leandro appeared behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist, pressed a kiss to her neck. The tattoos on his hands and arms were sun-faded now, softened by time and distance. You're thinking too hard, he murmured. I'm thinking about the future. And what does it look like? She turned in his arms, met his eyes. Loud. Messy. Full of someone who has your eyes and my stubbornness. He froze. Talia. I'm pregnant. The words hung in the air. Then he was kissing her, fierce and gentle and full of impossible joy. When, he managed. 2 months. I wanted to be sure before. You're sure now? Yes. He dropped to his knees in front of her, pressed his forehead to her stomach, his hands spanning her waist. Thank you, he whispered. For this. For everything. For choosing me when you should have run. I did run. Toward you. He looked up and she saw tears in his eyes. This man who'd faced down killers without flinching was crying over the promise of new life. I'll protect you both, he vowed. With everything I am. I know. I'll teach them to be strong. To choose love over power. To defend what matters. I know. I'll be better than my father. Better than the man I was. You already are. He stood, pulled her against him, and they stood together as the sun set on their old world and rose on their new one. 6 months later, Maria received a letter. No return address. No signature. Just a photo of Leandro and Talia holding a newborn baby girl with dark hair and amber eyes. On the back, in Leandro's handwriting, her name is Maria. He has your strength. The old woman smiled through her tears. Years later, the Rossi Don would tell his grandchildren about the Costanzo heir who gave up an empire for love. Some called it weakness. Others called it madness. But those who knew the full story called it what it was. The only choice that mattered. On their daughter's 5th birthday, Talia and Leandro sat on their terrace, watching their child chase butterflies in the garden. Do you ever miss it? Talia asked. The power. The respect. The fear. Leandro looked at his daughter, then at his wife. The tattoos that had once symbolized violence and legacy now marked a man who'd chosen differently. Every day, he said honestly. And not for a second. That doesn't make sense. Neither does loving you. But here we are. She leaned into him and they watched their daughter play, alive and safe and free. In the house they'd built with their own hands. In the life they'd chosen against all odds. In the love that had cost them everything and given them more. The whispers from the charity gala had been right about one thing. She was a gold digger. But the gold she'd found wasn't in his bank account. It was in his heart. And that made her the richest woman alive. The end. 10 years later. The letter arrived on a Tuesday. Maria Costanzo, the younger named for her grandmother, ran into the house waving the envelope. At 10 years old she had her father's intensity and her mother's courage. Mama. Papa. A letter from Nana. Leandro looked up from the boat he was repairing. His hair was longer now, touched with gray at the temples. The tattoos were still there but softened by sun and time, and a life lived in light instead of shadow. Talia emerged from her studio, paint on her hands. Her art had found an audience under a pseudonym. Her pieces sold in galleries across Europe. No one knew the artist was the woman who'd once been a maid. Their daughter handed over the letter. Talia opened it. My dearest children, Marco sends word that the Rossi family has fallen. Internal conflicts, poor decisions, the weight of their own greed. The threats that once sent you into hiding no longer exist. You're safe to come home. If you wish. But I understand if Greece has become home now. The life you built is too precious to risk. I am old now. I would like to meet my granddaughter before I die. But I will not guilt you into danger. Choose with your hearts as you always have. All my love, Madre. Leandro and Talia looked at each other. What do you think? He asked. I think our daughter deserves to know where she comes from. And the risks are smaller now. Maybe small enough. He touched her face, the gesture as gentle now as it had been in their first garden conversation. You want to go back? I want to go forward. With you. Wherever that leads. Maria tugged on her father's shirt. Papa, who's Nana? And where's home? Leandro knelt, looked his daughter in the eyes. Home is wherever we choose it to be. And Nana is someone very special who would love to meet you. Will we go see her? He looked at Talia. She nodded. Yes, Piccola. We'll go see her. Will it be an adventure? Leandro smiled, thinking of everything they'd survived, everything they'd sacrificed, everything they'd built. The best kind, he promised. They returned to Milan in spring. Not to the estate that belonged to Marco now, who'd built his own legacy, found his own love, made his own choices. But to a small apartment near the city center, where Maria Costanzo the elder waited with tears in her eyes and joy in her heart. Figlio, she whispered, embracing Leandro. You came home. We were always home, he said. We just had to learn it was portable. She turned to Talia, took her hands. You made him happy. We made each other happy. That's all I ever wanted. Maria looked down at her namesake. And this must be my granddaughter. Young Maria stepped forward, brave and curious. Nana. Yes, Piccola. I'm your Nana. Papa says you're very strong. Papa's very kind. But you, Maria touched the girl's face. You will be stronger. They stayed for a month. Long enough to reconnect with family. Long enough to see the city that had tried to destroy them. Long enough to realize that home wasn't a place. It was the people you chose. The love you built. The life you protected. And as they boarded the plane back to Greece, Leandro pulled Talia close. No regrets, he asked. She looked at their daughter, asleep against his shoulder. At the man who'd given up everything to give her everything. At the life they'd built from ashes and hope. Not one, she said, and meant it. Because some loves were worth the sacrifice. Some people were worth the risk. And some stories, the ones whispered about at charity galas and passed down through generations, were worth every impossible moment. This was theirs. And it was perfect. Final end. They whispered gold digger at the charity gala. The Mafia boss announced, she's been my wife for every day that matters. And that was the truth that changed everything.